Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman in our studios downtown Lansing, but we're venturing over to the west side of the state right now. We're going to spend a little time with John Anderson, author and co-founder of the CEO Advantage of Michigan. And let's talk a little bit about that, John. First of all, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. You're an entrepreneur, author, coach, and a whole bunch of other things which make you sound a little like Chris Holman, which I always tell people that's the description of a guy who can't keep a job, right?
Exactly. Thank you for inviting me. A little background. After working for IBM, which at the time I worked there was the most profitable company in the world, so it's always a reason to stick with me for a long time, I went on to be an entrepreneur because I married into an entrepreneurial family. And during the course of that, I met a gentleman by the name of Verne Harnish. And Verne is the founder of Gazelles and has written a book, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, as well as Scale Up. And I became a coach for him about 20 years ago, and I've been working with companies in the mid-market during that 20 years, primarily in Michigan, and primarily family-based businesses. It wasn't by design, but I just seem to have a lot of family businesses. And in the course of that, I've been able to launch a number of different entrepreneurial businesses along the way.
Well, and it's so much fun doing that if you can live with the risk piece of it, which I'm sure as an entrepreneur, you and I don't see risk like everybody else sees risk, but there is that piece of it, but there's always a juice involved in this thing. Now, you do a lot of CEO coaching. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the CEO coaching kind of led to writing the book. Initially, as part of this Gazelles program, the work I did was with the executive team. So the CEO would often bring me in of a privately held company, and then I'd work with him and his leadership or her leadership team, ranging from 3 people to maybe 7 people. And I was helping them with 3 things. One is to get just a few priorities in line. We don't need a bunch of priorities. We need like 3. So get them focused on that for the year, for the quarter, for the month, the week, the day. Second is to have effective meeting rhythms. So when you're growing a business, you have a lot of impromptu, face-to-face meetings, and that works until you hit a ceiling of complexity. Now you need to have a consistent rhythm so you can move through all these priorities. And then third is to have a measurement bound. It's real easy for an owner to say that sales team needs to hit their numbers. They need to be accountable, but often they're not personally accountable, so I create measures for them so they have their own accountability. So I'm really asking the leader to walk the talk with their team. The tool I created called the Legacy Map in my book is essentially the same tool, but for an individual. So once we got all these great processes in place, then the CEO or owner became the bottleneck, and I needed a tool for them also. And it's the same tool I use on myself called the Legacy Map, and that's essentially for them to work on personal and professional goals so that they're continuing to move and creating a vacuum of opportunity beneath them.
Well, it's kind of interesting because you brought a lot of these concepts now to retirement. You got onto that subject, which we both have a passion for. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing in that space.
Well, I mentioned this Verne Harnish. I would call him sort of the Obi-Wan Kenobi of my life some 25 years ago. Through him, I've met all kinds of interesting leaders, thought leaders, and authors. I met Peter Diamandis about 7 years ago. Peter is the author of the book Abundance, Why the Future is Better Than You Think. And I could go on and on about Peter, but time won't allow. You definitely just Google him. And Peter has a program that I attend every year, and he fundamentally says that you're either going to be disrupted or you're going to be the disruptor. And it's easy to see how the auto industry is going to be disrupted by autonomous vehicles and electric. And it's like, well, that'll happen to them, but it won't happen to me. And so as I started to apply that a little bit more, I thought, no, I could be disrupted too. The work I do today could be replaced by AI or Watson or some other technology. And so how can I be a disruptor? And I said, I'm a baby boomer. I don't really want to retire. A lot of the peers I'm with don't want to retire, not in a full sense like we were raised with. Maybe this retirement paradigm just doesn't work anymore. And so that led to writing the book, Replace Retirement, Living Your Legacy in the Exponential Age. If we weren't in an exponential period of growth with technology and healthcare and everything else and living a lot longer, then the old retirement paradigm would work fine. We do look at retirement from a financial planning aspect, but we don't look at it from holistically of our whole life. So I've broken that out into various components. And then finally, what you and I are passionate about is that I'm probably at the top of my game in terms of my financial resources, my network of relationships, and just wisdom from 61 years on the planet, why would I get out of the game when I'm actually playing the game the best I ever have, and I'm really enjoying it? So the book is almost designed after my life in the sense that I work with people I enjoy, doing work I enjoy, and you used risk earlier. I continue to take risks. Standing in front of an audience is very risky for me. Writing a book is very risky for me. I'm not avoiding risk. I'm just taking more appropriate risks than I did when I was a young man.
Yeah, all those things are wonderful. You got me excited now because you're right in my zone, and I love what you're doing. John, we're going to spend some time together in the future. John Anderson, author and co-founder of the CEO Advantage of Michigan. Unbelievable guy. We're going to, like I said, spend more time in the future. Thanks for being with us, John Anderson. I'm Chris Holman. You're listening to the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. Stick around because we're going to be right back with a whole lot more.